Do we think it's over? Or is there a sequel?
Alright, so A was revealed. Let's talk about the last 3 episodes of Season 1 of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin and find out just what happened. What's up, you lovely liars? The time has come. Season 1 of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin has come to a close, and the body count went up, plus we had our big A reveal, and of course, it left off on a bit of a cliffhanger. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about these last 3 episodes of the season. I'm also just going to try to put up a video a little later that just has the whole season condensed into one, hopefully short video for those people who kind of don't want to watch the show and just want to know who A is and don't want to sit through all the in-depth episode reports, by episode. But as always, this one will be a little long since we're talking about 3 episodes. And I have to say that episodes 8 and 9 weren't quite as exciting to me, but that finale episode, that I think was a well done finale. I liked how they were split up into different sections. They had choices to make. There was chase scenes. There were some frightening scenes. I think that finale was pretty well done for me personally. Alright, so should we just dive in and see how each girl's journey wrapped up this season, and then we'll talk about the big A reveal. Obviously, down in the description there will be time codes, so you can skip ahead to whatever you want. But let's get started. Also, again, this is a show that deals with a lot of sensitive topics like assault and self-harm, so this is just your warning. Alright, so first up, let's talk about Noah and Sean. So, Noah basically realized Sean was acting a bit different lately. When Noah asked Sean to get the guys of the football team to donate blood for their whole plan to figure out who assaulted Tabby and Imogen, Sean says they won't. Because no surprise, a lot of the guys are using steroids or some kind of performance enhancement. Sean, though, says he isn't using and he'll donate, but he still seems a little bit fishy. Later, Noah actually catches some of the football guys passing around these blue pills that they're taking. Then, over Thanksgiving, we get a glimpse at Sean's family when Noah spends the holiday with them. Seems like Sean's dad is very gung-ho, sports, our life type thing, probably putting a lot of pressure on Sean. Noah then has her suspicions when she realizes how gung-ho the dad is, so she excuses herself and goes to look at Sean's room, and she does find those little blue pills. Now, after the girls finally confront all the moms, which I'll talk about a bit later, we have Marjorie finally saying she truly wants to get clean. So she's going to detox at home with her sponsor, and so that means Noah has to go stay with Sean for a little bit, while also covering Marjorie's shifts at the pizza place. Well, one night at like 4 a.m., Noah hears these creepy creaking noises, and I think she thinks for a second that A is at this house, that someone's like snooping around, but it's just Sean doing sit-ups at 4 a.m. because he can't sleep, and he's on rep like 300 something. Yeah, this is totally a red flag. Well, this causes Noah to finally confront him about the pills she found, and when he tries to turn the tables on her, Noah reveals that she only tried her inhaler once and then threw it out. And she just lets Sean know that she can't have 2 addicts in her life, so Sean says that he'll stop, but of course he's like, I have to wean myself off the pills. No cold turkey for him. Now, while working one of her mom's shifts, Noah runs into her mom's dealer in the alley. Then one night when she returns home, she finds Marjorie with that dealer at the apartment. So yeah, Marjorie's detox is not going very well. Then we have Noah just picking up a baseball bat and getting that guy out. Yeah, Marjorie's definitely going to need some major help if she is going to kick this habit, but that's pretty understandable because addiction is such a tough thing. Now moving on to Mouse, whose storyline I honestly kind of thought was going to be a little bit more wild than it actually turned out to be. Not saying it's not twisted and stuff, but I thought it was going to go other places than where it went. Alright, so we have Mouse's mom still fighting, so Elodie is staying at a motel. Mouse attempts to ask Elodie not only about Angela Waters, but also about her father, and of course doesn't really get any cooperation. So as a good little liar does, she goes and snoops into the family pawn shop where apparently Elodie has decided to keep all the important family documents, and she goes and finds her birth certificate and finds her father's name, a man named Aaron Stevens. For a second, I thought, oh, could this be A? It's like they're naming every other random character you meet with an A, just so you will think for a half second that this person could be A. So Mouse then gets some advice from Ash about the desire to meet birth parents because we learn Ash is adopted, so Mouse comes up with this plan. She finds her old Girl Scout uniform and pretends to be delivering cookies to Aaron's house. Well, as expected, it doesn't go so well. He has a wife and a little daughter, and he basically tells Mouse that she needs to leave. So Mouse is obviously crushed and upset, and that's when we see her grieving, so that makes her reach back out to Steve, breaking her own rules. We also have Mouse and Ash deciding to parent trap Mouse's moms to get them in the same room to talk, but instead that just gets awkward because Ash is bombarded with a ton of awkward questions. Later, when Ash asks Mouse how it went with her dad, Mouse lies, saying it went great, and Ash mentions maybe all of us should go bowling sometime. And well, they do go bowling, and again, we have Steve pretending to be Mouse's dad, which makes sense because Steve is who pretended to be Mouse's dad when they met Ash, so it's only right that that's the person who shows up. It'd be real weird to explain if someone else showed up. Well, it seems like they're kind of pulling this little ruse off until Steve walks away because he gets a phone call. Then when he comes back, he's clearly upset and yells at Mouse to stop calling him dad and storms out. Later, when Steve calls to apologize, he says he needs to meet Mouse, so they meet at the weird motel, and Steve reveals that he actually got a call and they found his daughter Rachel. But sadly, she's not alive. Her body was found in a landfill. So now he is truly grieving again, and he makes Mouse put on Rachel's clothes. And it's kind of like, oh no, is he about to just kidnap Mouse? It's like his grieving gotten so far that Mouse is about to actually be abducted. Well, this is one time that Elodie's overbearingness actually comes in handy because Ash has actually started to worry because Mouse isn't returning his text, so he finds the moms. Elodie pulls up her phone because she has Mouse's location, find my friends type thing on her phone, and they find the hotel that she's in with Steve. And well, Mouse has some explaining to do because Elodie's like, I recognize that man, and Mouse just says they were playing pretend together, but it's over now. But yeah, the weird thing is, with the rest of these episodes, we never truly have the moms and Mouse sitting down to have a proper talk about all of this, at least not that we see. So maybe in between season 1 and 2, these people will go to family therapy. Alright, now let's move on to Faran. Faran is working hard with her physical therapy, but she is definitely overdoing it. She is doing more workouts than she should be and wearing her brace for way more hours than she should. I guess she thinks that overdoing it will make her heal faster. More is better, she thinks, but in this case, it's definitely not. She then starts to audit Madame Giry's class so she can watch the routines to be prepared for Giselle when that time comes when she's recovered. Well, Madame Giry reveals that she actually pushed Giselle to the next year so that Faran's back could be fully healed. And of course, Faran tries to argue, being like, but I'm getting better and I'm doing it fast, but Madame Giry actually says something that's wise for once. She says that what Faran is doing won't speed up the recovery, and with something so severe as this, you cannot take shortcuts. So then we see Faran decide to let loose. She realizes she's strived for perfection her whole life, she's changed the way she looks, so she is letting her hair down. Literally, she even stops straightening it, so she rocks her natural look, and she looks amazing. Not that she didn't look amazing before, but she looks amazing here as well. And she also decides she's going to take on an independent study, where she is choreographing a dance with Henry and Kelly. So, you know, if you can't be on the field, sometimes you have those skills, use them in another way, so that you can keep those skills up. And so I love that she's turning to choreographing until she can dance again. And also, this is when we start to see Faran and Kelly actually grow closer, but it's not before a bit of fighting because Kelly is going through her own stuff and she finally gets kind of some good meaty stuff in these episodes. Because, you know, up until now, we've had the whole is she Karen, is she Kelly type thing. She's sort of been this side character who flip-flops between being mean and also being really nice. But here we kind of dive into why she's acting the way she is, and yes, this is Kelly, not Karen. Alright, so we have Kelly not really being on good terms with the girls, but they need her help, of course, when it comes to the blood drive. But how are they going to convince her? Well, Imogen, being her former friend, decides to open up to Kelly about her assault and the night of that party, and explains to them why they need Kelly to convince Nurse Simmons to let all the girls volunteer. And of course, Kelly feels awful and apologizes for how Imogen was treated, and it's basically a start. And Kelly ends up helping them, and while her friendships seem to be going on the up and up, her home life is going on the down. So after the successful blood drive plan, all the girls, yes, including Kelly, go out to Pinball Pizza to celebrate. And then they all go out to this club to just let loose and have fun, forget about all the trouble for a night. They party into the wee hours of the morning, and Kelly returns home truly looking happy. I don't think we've seen her happy this entire show until this moment. She's been accepted by these girls. They're having this fresh start, and I'm happy to see her like this. But of course, that joy is short-lived because her evil father, Sheriff Tom Beasley, is drunkenly waiting up for her.
Where have you been, Dad?
Working. Where else would I have been?
I don't know. You're just not wearing your uniform is all.
Later, we learn that Kelly had the worst Thanksgiving with her parents, so she comforts herself by making out with Greg and then telling him to call her Karen, which is super awkward. And then we even see her show up to school wearing Karen's clothes, having the Karen attitude. But what this is that she just wishes at this point, every time her parents berate her, that she had Karen's life. We see her and her mom arguing over Kelly working with Faran on this independent study. And then her mom says that she can't count on Kelly. It's like father, like daughter. And this argument continues with Sheriff Beasley saying to Kelly, "You never were the dancer Karen was." And well, Kelly then calls him out for being a drunk bully, causing this to happen.
If there were any justice in this world, it would have been you who slipped and not Karen.
Yeah, ouch, right? Well, we have Kelly again lashing out in a different way because during a rehearsal with Henry, where Faran is not present, she actually kisses Henry. And Henry, with his loose lips, but doing the right thing this time, actually tells Faran what happened. So Faran is like, I am going to lay into Kelly. This woman has not changed. Every time I give her a little bit, she just like goes 3 steps back. Kelly apologizes, just says, can you not do this right now? Things are very intense at home. And that's when Faran, again, notices Kelly's self-harm marks. Now, instead of ignoring it and being full bully and laying into Kelly, Faran turns into a true friend for Kelly, something she really needs at this point, someone to listen to her. So Kelly confides in her about how awful her dad is and how sometimes she wishes she was the one who died and all of that kind of thing. You know, the survivor's guilt type thing, and her parents really aren't making it any easier. Then Kelly asks a legit question.
Why are you being so nice to me? My sister and I were horrible to you.
You were. Yes. Maybe we can break that cycle.
Well, Faran is like, someone's got to stick up for Kelly, so Faran takes matters into her own hands and confronts Sheriff Beasley and reveals that she knows his deep, dark secret about hooking up with boys during community service. But it seems like Sheriff retaliates in his own way by having a deputy arrest Faran's dad Zeke over something dumb, and that's just the last straw. Faran then tells Kelly and her mom about Sheriff's dirty little secret. Now, it actually turns out the mom knew the whole time, and the mom then reveals something even bigger. That Tom has struggled with these feelings since he was in high school. And when he was in high school, to prove to the boys that he wasn't gay or whatever it is that he identifies as, he raped Angela Waters, so he is the culprit. Well, then we have Sheriff Tom Beasley starting to spiral because he finds out that the beans were spilled about his dark secrets, especially with Angela. And he's decided to basically lock Kelly and her mom in the house till after Christmas break. Yeah, not wild at all, but Kelly manages to break out just in time to tell Faran everything, and that's when Faran opens up about the whole A situation, and you know, because they're kind of worried that maybe Sheriff Beasley is A, so they're like, we gotta get Kelly out of that house. Alright, now later when the girls go to have their big showdown with A that I'll talk about in a little bit, they text Kelly for backup, and when she tries to get out of the house, her drunk ass dad confronts her and he threatens Kelly. Everybody's had enough. Mom actually stabs Tom, and it's about damn time. Not saying that the mom is that great either, but it's finally time that she starts sticking up for her daughter, and I think she's waking up to realize that I lost one daughter, I can't lose this other daughter. But we'll get to the rest of what happens to Sheriff Tom in a bit. It's time to move on to Tabby and Imogen and their quest to find their attacker. So Tabby's plan is to collect DNA from all the boys in the school, and they're going to use this blood drive. But unfortunately, with the little hiccup there that the jocks, who they think are the main suspects, not donating blood, the girls then have to go raid the locker room for DNA. Then at the blood drive, they collect the bloody cotton balls with the help of Kelly. Now they give all this DNA to Marjorie, Noah's mom, who has a friend at a lab that can run it, but it's going to be 2 weeks. And this plan seems like, oh, that's actually kind of smart, but then it's not when you think about these girls collecting all this DNA, but not knowing who it actually, belongs to, which means they'll get a little bit, but the quest after that is going to be even harder to be like, okay, if it is confirmed it's someone in this school, how the hell are they going to go do that again? They should have been labeling things, but I guess that would have been way too obvious. Well, after a couple weeks, they learn that it indeed was a boy from the school, the DNA that matches, but it's not a football player. So they have 66 names of other guys in the school to try to figure out who it is. And of course, all the girls think it's not their love interest, right? It couldn't be Henry, it couldn't be Sean, it couldn't be Ash, it couldn't be Chip, right?
Or Chip.
Well, for Tabby, she has to work on this final film project we talked about in the last episodes, and she actually has to get permission from her mom since the subject matter deals with a rape revenge story, and it's pretty graphic, and that means she finally has to sort of tell Cindy why she's doing this. And in doing that, she has to open up that she knows about Angela's attack. Now, she doesn't mention hers just yet, but we see that all of this talk makes Sydney upset, and that's when we get her flashback, because this episode, she gets her gift from A, which is the Scarlet Letter book that Angela checked out many times, and the card says Silence Kills, and we learn back in the day that Sydney kept quiet after Angela confided in her about her attack. But even with Sydney on board, unfortunately, Principal Clanton says that Tabby cannot do this film. But now, over the course of these episodes, Sydney's drinking her wine and realizing that Tabby's keeping a lot of secrets from her, and they start to argue a lot more. And, well, after a meeting with the moms tell Sydney she needs to snoop and find out what else the girls know, so Sydney goes and finds Tabby's computer and finds those naked locker room videos, which causes more fights. But what it ends up doing is having Tabby open up to Sydney about being assaulted. And we have Sydney being the one that says 9 times out of 10 it's somebody you know. Well, of course, this causes the wheels in Tabby's head to move. At first, she kind of thinks maybe it could be Wes, but then, Wes is just creepy. We even have Sydney, thinking Wes is creepy as well, because she's remembering all the times that Wes has brought Tabby home, and she even goes and confronts Wes at the theater, and it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of great. All right, but now Tabby's doing her own investigative work. She's starting to get a little bit suspicious of Chip.
Anyway, aren't you into Imogen?
Only because you wouldn't give me a shot.
Because she has a memory one night of Karen's party where, we had the falling out with Kelly, Karen, and Imogen, and she remembers a drunk Chip that night. He was so wasted. That's when he actually kissed Tabby, and she friend-zoned him, and he was super upset, and he wandered away home drunk that night. So as her suspicions of Chip grow, she kind of has to figure it out. So she asks Greg if Chip was at that party, but he can't really remember. So then she goes and asks Wes about that night, and he says both Chip and Tabby skipped out, which, Tabby was like, no, Chip was supposed to cover for me. So now she knows Chip was at both places. Now, Tabby relays all this information to Imogen, and it's just very upsetting for all of them, because if you think about it, if this turns out to be true, Chip is a monster. Chip literally has been obsessed with Tabby, so then he moves on to her friend, and then he even goes to, Imogen's baby checkup, as well as the adoption thing, pretending to be the dad. It's just creepy. He's overcompensating. But now Imogen and Tabby just need hard evidence. So they know that Chip is working late one night, so they tell his mom that he said that they could borrow this camera for her short film. So they go and search his room, because they're basically trying to find some kind of token. Imogen remembers her underwear was not there when she woke up, so they think he might have it. Well, they don't really find anything except for some very disturbing horror movies that feature some graphic assault scenes hidden in the back of his closet. This still is a red flag, so they decide the only thing they can do is just try to see if they can guilt him into confessing. And they do that. They go to confront him at the theater, and they just keep mentioning all the stuff that he did, and you can see him start to sweat even though he tries to deny it, and eventually he does confess. It is your very sadly often heard story of a disgusting guy who can't handle rejection, and so he gets his revenge on the person who rejected them. Now, Chip, he thinks that he will get off because he apologized to these girls, but he won't, because guess who shows up at the theater? None other than A, who has not been around for a little while, but A is back, and Chip starts to run, and A actually just slowly walks. A does not move very fast. A goes up to the girls, and the girls just say, "You see that guy? He did the same thing to us that Sheriff Tom Beasley did to Angela." And we have A going after Chip. So now that we know who the culprit of the attacks were and who the baby daddy is, let's move on to this big reveal of A. So these episodes, they pick up right after the girls received that text from A of Tyler's body. They definitely now somehow want to tell the police, but they can't. And Faran finally points out that A is only killing horrible people, but why? Meanwhile, Imogen and Tabby decide they need to go back to see Crazy Joe for answers, and they end up asking about the 6th signature in that guest book, and then they bring up that Angela was raped. And Crazy Joe just kind of starts to freak out and says, these girls need to drop this or it will be very bad for them. Imogen then decides she's going to try to match the signature in her mom's yearbooks, but she has no luck, and she realizes her mom's senior yearbook is missing. Then later, Imogen starts to remember some things about her mother. She goes to carry on this tradition of on Thanksgiving volunteering for a soup kitchen, and she has this memory of Davy excusing herself to go talk to some woman at the soup kitchen and then saying that they immediately have to leave, and Imogen's thinking this woman was Rose Waters. So Rose Waters could be back in Millwood. Also, on Thanksgiving, we have Tyler's dad dropping by Tabby's house to confront her about his missing son, and that's actually something that doesn't really get resolved by the end, I don't think. I don't know if anybody, what they do about Tyler, if they declare him missing or what, I don't remember. But then we have Imogen looking up Angela's address from the nurse's computer, because apparently that student database goes many, many years back. So Imogen goes to that house, which is creepy as fuck. There is a weird animal cage there. There are ropes tied to beds, and she finds a corpse on a bed as well as A's mask hanging up. And then she's trying to leave. She runs into Crazy Joe, who's entering the house with a bag of groceries or something. We don't really know, but he starts to chase her. She thankfully manages to knock them out. Also, it's just wild because this whole time the nurse told Imogen she needs to keep her blood pressure down, but this girl keeps running from crazy things like A and crazy people. So yeah, I think that baby's gonna come sooner than later. All right, when the girls go back to the rail yard because they think they need more answers from Crazy Joe, they find him unfortunately hung from the ceiling with a note that says Angela Waters did not die in vain. And they find Davy's senior yearbook with all the pictures of the moms scratched out. They also realize the note is a match for the 6th signature, so they basically think it's been Crazy Joe this whole time, that he is A and that this whole thing is over, right? Well, a few weeks later, the moms and the girls finally all sit down to demand answers from each other. It's about damn time, as Lissa would say. Sydney finally explains how awful they were in high school, and they each explain their different sins towards Angela that we've seen in the flashbacks throughout all 10 episodes. They never truly say that Davy was their ringleader and the worst of them all. Now the moms just want to move on. Well, after some nightmares, Imogen is determined to really find out what happened to Davy because she thinks maybe Davy was actually murdered, that she wouldn't kill herself. She would not leave Imogen. So Imogen goes to see the coroner, who says they can do an autopsy, but unfortunately a petition needs to be filed, and the sheriff has to do that, which means that Imogen has to go see the horrible man himself, Sheriff Beasley. But she does manage to get him to agree by bringing up Karen, and Imogen also needs the consent of the next of kin, so we finally meet Imogen's dad. But also it's what happened to Sheriff Beasley wanting to take these girls down? Did he just give up, or is he just threatened by them now? I don't know. Imogen's dad lives next to the Millwood Quarry, and he gives Imogen some insight into how her mom never wanted to talk about high school and also battled with lots of ups and downs of depression. But what got her out of that was Imogen being born. That's when Davy completely changed. So he thinks Davy would never leave Imogen either, so he signs those papers and says that he'll call her if he remembers anything else about Davy. Well, later we have Sheriff Beasley calling Imogen, being like, what the heck happened? Because guess what? Somebody has dug up Davy's body. It is not at the grave. This causes Imogen to faint at school, and when she wakes up, she gets a call from her dad, who has remembered something kind of important, that Davy had a high school sweetheart named Tom. Or Tommy, and we only have one character we've met so far named Tom, and that is Sheriff Tom Beasley. So, yeah. After all this information is shared among the girls, they start to wonder, is Sheriff Tom A? But they still don't understand why he would have killed his own daughter then, if that is true, and they need some more information out of these moms. They think they can do it by splitting the moms up, but none of them are really telling them much. They just say they heard Tom was the culprit, but they thought it was a bunch of rumors, and that Tom and Davy apparently did break up not long after those rumors started. Well, after we have Imogen and Tabby confronting Chip and A resurfacing, they let the other girls know. Then they all happen to get a text from none other than A, who says, your final trial is about to begin. You broke our rules. So, yeah, A knows that Faran told Kelly about A, and Noah then brings up a good point.
Is punishing the guilty for what they did to Angela Waters. Wouldn't Sheriff Beasley be the guiltiest of them all?
Someone must be guiltier. Does A always know what we're talking about? Does he have a school bugged?
They then decide they need to go back to the Waters house for more answers, because they're still just not sure what's going on. And they discover that there is a height chart and a Polaroid, basically confirming the theory that we also kind of had confirmed with the picture in the trunk, that Angela has a brother. They then get a text from A saying time for the trial, and a picture of the high school as well as all the moms drugged up and collected by A. That's when we have Imogen texting Kelly for backup, and after the stabbing of Tom, she goes and gets Greg. So then we have the girls going to the school to face this final test. What will it be? Well, they each need to be divided. They go to different rooms to basically confront their own bullies. And inside each room, they're told to do something to get vengeance. So who is in each room? For Faran, it's Madame Jury for demanding perfection. For Tabby, it is Chip for the obvious. For Mouse, it's Steve for playing a cat and mouse game with Mouse. For Noah, it's her mom's drug dealer. And then for Imogen, it's her mom's body, and her note actually says, look in your mouth if you want answers. We then have the girls meeting back in the hallway, and it turns out none of them exacted revenge on their bullies. They then get a text saying, good job, you showed mercy, but now it's time to come to the auditorium for their true trial. And that's where they find all the moms tied up, and that's when we get a walking out. And guess what? It's your classic team thing. I think we kind of had the idea that there were two people involved with this whole A mystery, and there indeed are. We have A, who is the man in the body with the scary mask, and then we have none other than Principal Clanton. I think a lot of you had kind of thought he was shady from the beginning, but he hasn't shown up in the show a lot, so sometimes you kind of forget about that man, right? The girls ask if A is Angela's brother, and Clanton says it is, and his name is Archie. And if you're like, ugh, this is another Riverdale reference, don't worry, it's actually not. The showrunners who do both shows, they basically said that they tried to clear a whole list of A names, and they kept calling this A person Andrew, but unfortunately legal came back and said that Archie was the only name that cleared, so it's just a coincidence. But yeah, so we have the classic, like I said, double team villain, two baddies, but how exactly are they related now? Because we know that Archie is Angela's brother. Well, it turns out that Principal Clanton is Angela and Archie Waters' father. He fell in love with Rose in high school when she got pregnant with twins. Principal Clanton's parents paid off Angela's family and got them to move out of town and to never talk about any of this. Well, eventually Clanton came to work at the school, and Rose eventually turned to Millwood because she wanted Angela to go to Millwood High. But the thing is, they didn't want any of that history for Angela to know about. And when it comes to Archie, why did we never see him in school? Why is he always wearing the mask? Why didn't he rip the mask off? Well, it's because he basically had to stay at home because they say that he has a face that only a mother could love. Yeah, which means that he must be, unfortunately, in some way, maybe like deformed or something. We don't know. But let's just also say that Rose Waters had some issues. We see how overprotective and stuff she is by not wanting Angela to go to that party. But also, there was that cage in the Waters house that had hay and crowns in it and stuff. And I just feel like she kept Archie in a cage, and that's just messed up. I need a whole prequel show about Rose Waters. All right, but moving on, we have Principal Clanton saying that he would watch Angela go from class to class and he would observe her. So Clanton watched everything happen, the transformation and then the mean girls bullying her. And yeah, but they're all kind of like, well, why are you going after us still and not the man who attacked your daughter? Well, Principal Clanton is now thankful that he does know the identity of who raped Angela. But he says Angela died after the rape, so it had to be something the moms did, and that's why he's been punishing all of them. Now that's when Imogen pulls out the diary pages she got from Davy's dead mouth and says, there's these words on every page. The words erase her. Maybe that is the key to finding out what happened. Now Sydney has to explain everything, and she says that basically once Angela told Davy it was Tom that raped her, Davy didn't believe it. And of course that's when they started treating Angela even more horribly, and they basically set out to, well, erase Angela from existence. So they all ignored her and somehow got the entire school to ignore her. And then for one final cruel trick, they invited her to this rave, and when Angela showed up, obviously needing help, they continued to ignore her, and that's when Angela jumped. Now Imogen then learned some other truth, that sadly Davy did take her own life, that A only sent the gift, but all of this guilt pushed Davy over the edge. Alright, but now these sins must be paid for, and it seems like Clanton wants to sacrifice Imogen's baby. So he basically sicks Archie on her to, like, I guess cut the baby out of her? I don't know, but they give Imogen this head start, and Imogen starts running, and she starts remembering various advice her mom has given her throughout the year, so she runs back to her old house and hides, and eventually has a massive chase and fight scene with A, but she manages to get him stabbed on his own machete. And that's also when her water breaks, and then all the girls find her and they take her to the hospital, where of course Imogen awakens to nightmares that A has taken her baby. Thankfully they're just nightmares, and her baby girl is completely safe and Imogen is okay. We also learn that Clanton has been arrested, and both Sheriff Tom and Archie are in the hospital from their stabby wounds. Also forgot to mention that Kelly and Greg did show up to the school, and that caused Greg to get shot by Principal Clanton. But don't worry, Greg's okay too, and Chip has also been arrested. So it seems like justice has been served, right? A happy ending as we flash forward to everyone celebrating Christmas together, like literally everybody who has survived. And even Kelly and Greg are there, and yeah, we finally have some other revelations. We have Marjorie finally saying she's truly going to check into rehab after the holidays, and it does seem like this time she means it. I mean, nothing will force you, I guess, to go to rehab than almost seeing everybody you love die. Corey is also going to be moving back home, while Mouse's moms are going to couples therapy. We also learned that Chip made Belle and is back home for the holidays, which of course upsets Tabby and Imogen. They want to press charges even though they know it's not going to be easy. As far as this baby goes, we learn that Imogen is giving her baby up for adoption, and that couple lives in Rosewood. And guess who is adopting the baby? Yes, it's someone from the PLL universe. It is Arya and Ezra. Now, we don't see them, but the mention of them is pretty big. We obviously got the Ezra books Easter egg earlier in this season, and we have Imogen saying that the parents say they're open to an open adoption or keeping in touch. So that means we could maybe see Arya and Ezra in the future. But then Tabby asks an important question.
Do we think it's over? Or is there a sequel?
Well, that's right. It's actually not over. We later see that a nurse finds Tom Beasley dead, and the cop watching Archie's room is also dead. And guess what? Archie is gone. So where has he gone? Well, the episode ends up ending with Chip going to answer the door on Christmas with A standing there. So I don't think there's going to be a trial necessary, but also those girls are going to have an alibi as to where they were when Chip died, but thankfully they got that whole pack of people to be there. But yeah, that's the big reveal, the reveal of A, or I guess the two A's. I feel like the hidden sibling thing was like a very popular theory. I don't know if I ever truly thought about the principal. I knew he was like a little weird, but I think I saw other people saying it too, that maybe he was like Sheriff Tom's lover or something, because he doesn't really look much older than all those parents. But I guess that's the whole thing, is if, you know, the child was born when he was in high school, he would look pretty young and close in age to the child. But yeah, I guess Archie, that was kind of an interesting villain, right? In a weird way, he's like, I don't know, it's kind of like Dexter or whoever. It's like they kill because they kill, but they only kill people who do bad things. It's just interesting that he never wanted to hurt the moms, and eventually he wanted to protect the girls from, like, Chip. So it's more like he's just out to kill anybody who bullies anybody. I feel like it was Clanton who wanted to rip Imogen's baby from her body for some kind of sacrifice, which was a little strange. But now, we have to wonder, could there possibly be a season 2, and where could that go? Well, we have Clanton in jail, but it doesn't mean that he can't continue to, like, torment people or escape jail. He could still control Archie somehow. But also, it's like, who is Archie going to go after now? Part of me feels like maybe the show could go anthology style, or it's a new city in the same universe each time, because I really don't know why A would want to continue to torture the girls and the moms after this. But then again, the original PLL went on for many seasons with multiple A's, who they claim all worked for a massive A at the very end, right? But yeah, I guess it could happen. My brain right now can't think of how. But that's a good thing, right? It makes me curious to see the next season if there is one. But also, I kind of want to know, what did they tell Madame Jury, the drug dealer, and Steve after they were rescued? How do you explain that to them? Some masked man coming to take you, and then having these girls, like, having to, like, maybe kill you? I don't know. Yeah, that would have been an interesting thing to see them try to explain. But as far as A goes, the showrunners revealed that they actually didn't settle on who A would be until like the 4th episode. When they pitched the show, there was like 10 names on the list, and they slowly just kind of whittled it down. But it made sense. It had to be someone in the school, because how would they know what happened to Angela? How would they know what happened with the girls on a daily basis? It makes me wonder if we can see the principal maybe snooping around more in scenes. We did see a suspicious look when he bought his tickets for the carnival, when he like looked over at the girls. There was something creepy then. I think that's the only thing I kind of remember where I was like, principal. Something's going on there. But yeah, if we could get any other backstory, I want the backstory for Rose Waters, because that's giving me like American Horror Story Flowers in the Attic type vibe with what she was doing at that house. Also, Joe, Crazy Joe is an interesting one. There's still so many unanswered things too. Was he helping the principal as well as Archie? Because he like showed up to that house. Is he like Archie's friend? I don't know there. But overall, I enjoyed this first season. I think it was a great mix of YA drama as well as some horror and mystery in there. Some episodes obviously slower than others, but it made me glad that there were only 10 episodes and not like your network 20, because that means the show would have been dragged out, and that's when shows start to go off the rails, jump the shark. Like if you look at how Riverdale ended up going and how the OG PLL ended up going, when you have 20 episodes you have to fill, sometimes something like that kind of a story, you have to do so much filler that it just goes in so many wild directions. But yeah, I think that's all I got. So I gotta know, what did you think about how each character ended up? What about those big reveals? And did you end up guessing a right? And if there is a second season, what do you want to see happen? Leave me all your thoughts and theories down below. And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and check out more of my videos right over here. And I just gotta say thank you for listening to me ramble about season 1 of this show. I know some of these videos are long. That's all I got. I'm gonna stop rambling now. But as always, my name is Lisa. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and I hope we get to do this again with the season 2.